The rain fell like whispers against the bulletproof glass of the presidential palace in Ouagadougou. Outside, the streets were quiet. Curfew emptied, but inside history was unfolding with the silent intensity of a cobra preparing to strike. Captain Ibrahim Traore sat motionless at the head of the mahogany conference table, his military uniform crisp despite the late hour, his eyes fixed on the manila folder that the Chinese intelligence officer had just placed before him. The room was seal electronic devices banned, guards loyal since childhood positioned outside, white noise generators humming in the corners to defeat any listening devices that might have escaped detection. "These photographs were taken 3 days ago," said Jiang Wei, the special envoy from Beijing who had arrived under the cover of agricultural cooperation talks. His voice was steady, practiced in delivering information that toppled governments. "And these," he continued, sliding a second set of images across the polished wood, "were taken in Moscow last month." Traore didn't reach for them immediately. His discipline the same iron will that had carried him through coup and counter-coup, through assassination attempts, and Western sanctions kept his hands folded calmly before him. But inside, something was building, a storm-gathering force behind the dam of his composure. The Chinese delegation, just 3 men, each selected for this mission personally by President Xi, remained perfectly still, watching the Burkina leader with the patience of those who had maneuvered themselves into this position over years, not hours. Finally, Traore extended one hand and drew the photographs closer. What he saw made the blood in his veins turn to ice. There, captured in high-resolution clarity, was Colonel Mumina Diallo, his chief of military intelligence's childhood friend, the man who had stood beside him during the darkest days of the coup, seated in a nondescript apartment in Bobo Dioulasso with a known Russian GRU officer. Money was changing hands. Documents were spread between them. The timestamp showed 2:17, the exact time Diallo had claimed to be conducting a nighttime security review of the northern border installations. The second photograph was even more damning. General Abdoulaye Coulibaly, commander of the Presidential Guard, Traore's most trusted security officer, the man who tasted his food before each meal, photographed entering the Russian embassy in Moscow through a service door not listed on any official blueprint. The date corresponded with Coulibaly's medical leave the previous month. "There are 57 more," Zhang said quietly. "We have identified 23 of your senior officers who are part of this network. We believe it has been operational for at least 14 months. 14 months. Traore calculated backward. Since just after he had signed the preliminary resource agreements with China. Since just after he had begun quietly distancing Burkina Faso from Wagner Group involvement. Since just after he had declined Moscow's offer of a permanent Russian military installation outside Ouagadougou. "How deep?" Traore asked, his voice betraying nothing of the earthquake happening within. "To your kitchen staff? To your personal driver? To your... my family?" Traore's question cut through the air like a blade. Zhang paused. "Your brother Issouf has been approached. He declined. They did not persist with him." "A small mercy, then." Traore nodded once, acknowledging this rare piece of good news in a tsunami of betrayal. "And what does Beijing want in exchange for this information?" Traore asked, his eyes finally lifting to meet Zhang's. He was a soldier, a strategist that knew there was no such thing as a free warning, especially between nations. Zhang smiled thinly. "China respects Burkina Faso's sovereignty. We merely wish to ensure that our agreements remain undisturbed by outside influence." Translation: the Chinese had invested too much in Burkina Faso's rare earth mineral deposits and infrastructure projects to watch them slip into Russian control through espionage. This wasn't altruism, it was asset protection. Traore stood suddenly, the legs of his chair scraping against the floor. The Chinese delegation tensed, but he merely walked to the window, parting the bulletproof curtains a fraction to look out at the rain-slicked capital city, his country, now revealed to be honeycombed with betrayal. "Leave the evidence," he said without turning. "All of it. I need names, locations, communication protocols." "Of course," Zhang replied. There is one more thing. Traore turned. Zhang reached inside his jacket and produced a small portable drive. This contains intercepted communications between the network and Moscow Center. They have been ordered to prepare for a contingency transition within 30 days. The diplomatic language was clear enough. A coup was being prepared. 30 days to remove him or worse. Why not just let it happen? Traore asked bluntly. Why warn me at all? A new regime might cancel your contracts, but Russia would offer you compensation, new deals elsewhere. The mathematics of betrayal is universal. Zhang's expression remained impassive. Because Captain Traore? Moscow does not share power. If they succeed here, our intelligence suggests Niger falls next, then Mali. The entire Sahel becomes a Russian lake. This is unacceptable to Beijing. Realpolitik, then. The new great game playing out across Africa, with Burkina Faso as just one critical square on the board. Traore nodded once. You may go. My staff will see you out through the secure tunnel. No one will know you were here. After the Chinese delegation departed, Traore remained alone in the conference room for 3 hours, methodically examining every document, every photograph, every transcript. His mind, trained in both Soviet and Western military academies, constructed and discarded plans with cold efficiency, searching for the path with the highest probability of success and survival. By dawn, as the first light broke over Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traore had made his decision. He would not run, he would not hide, he would not strike blindly. He would use the oldest strategy in warfare, deception. Colonel Mumina Diallo entered the presidential office at precisely 700 hours, as he had every morning for the past 2 years. He carried the daily intelligence briefing, compiled overnight by his team, detailing security threats, border incidents, and international developments relevant to Burkina Faso's interests. Good morning, Captain, he said, saluting crisply. Traore, seated behind his desk reviewing documents, returned the salute. Mumina, sit. I have something important to discuss. Diallo took the offered chair, noting with professional interest that the usual guards were not present inside the office. Only Traore's most trusted aide, Lieutenant Zida, stood by the window, his back to the room, apparently absorbed in watching the early morning traffic below. We've made a discovery, Traore said, his voice low, confidential. A significant mineral deposit in the Northern Territories. Initial surveys suggest rare earth elements in concentrations that could transform our economy. Diallo's expression registered appropriate interest, not too eager, not too dismissive. That's excellent news, Captain. Have the Chinese been informed? Traore shook his head slowly. Number, and they will not be, not yet. This discovery will be developed by Burkina Faso alone, no foreign partners. Diallo couldn't quite hide his surprise. Captain, with respect, we lack the technical expertise and capital for such an undertaking. The Chinese agreement specifically gives them first rights to... The agreement covers known deposits at the time of signing, Traore interrupted. My legal advisors confirm this find falls outside those parameters. He leaned forward. But this conversat,